Good morning, Richard Westwood here with a midweek message for Wednesday the 3rd of March. I'd like to today have a think together about things like prejudice and discrimination and surprises. Prejudice and discrimination are words that get thrown around a lot at the moment, and we might think that they're new words. In fact, the Bible contains plenty of instances where one person or another is prejudiced against another person or a group of people, or discriminates against them. Prejudice is where someone thinks poorly of a person or a group of people because of what they think they already know about them. It could be where they come from, what they look like, skin colour, a disability of some kind, hair colour, nationality. It could be anything. In making up our minds about somebody in a bad way before we really know about them, that's prejudice. Discrimination is a stage further. It's where people let their prejudiced thoughts affect their actions, so that the people we may have a prejudice about then get treated unfairly because we have prejudged them. Discrimination, if you like, is prejudice with hands and feet on. And whilst the Bible contains many examples of prejudice and discrimination, its overarching message is that both prejudice and discrimination are wrong, and that God's longing is always to include people. For our midweek message this week, I want us to have a look at an example of some prejudice from the Bible and see what it does to the people doing the prejudging. The section I'd like to look at together is from John chapter 7, and here's the story so far. Jesus has been teaching in the temple courtyard, and the chief priests, who are the religious leaders of the day, have sent in the temple guards, kind of police, to arrest Jesus because they're not happy with what he's saying. But the temple guards can't do that. They find that Jesus' teaching is challenging and they're hooked. And we pick up the story in John chapter 7 verse 45. Here's what it says. Finally, the temple guards went back to the chief priests and the Pharisees, who asked them, "Why didn't you bring him in?" "No one ever spoke the way this man does," the guards replied. "You mean he's deceived you also?" the Pharisees retorted. "Have any of the rulers of the Pharisees believed in him? No. But this mob that knows nothing of the law, there is a curse on them." Nicodemus, who had gone to Jesus earlier and who was one of their own number, asked, Does our law condemn a man without first hearing him to find out what he's been doing?" They replied, "Are you from Galilee too? Look into it, and you'll find that a prophet does not come out of Galilee." Jesus here is being prejudged by the Pharisees, some of the religious leaders of the day. And they sound pretty opinionated people, don't they, in this picture that John the Apostle gives us. They seem to be fairly prejudiced about anybody who doesn't have the same level of intelligence or insight or experience that they've got. And because they know that Jesus has travelled from Jerusalem to Galilee, and because they have prejudiced views about people from Galilee, they think he must fit into their misshaped and half-baked ideas about people from Galilee. In fact, they're not the only ones who were thinking like this. In fact, earlier in John's Gospel, in John chapter 1, Philip, who is one of the first disciples, tells his friend Nathanael about Jesus of Nazareth. Nazareth, by the way, is part of the district of Galilee. And Nathanael replies, "Nazareth? Can anything good come from Nazareth?" In fact, Nathanael ends up meeting Jesus and his mind and heart are changed. But it's another example of prejudice in the Bible. But anyway, back to those religious leaders we were talking about in John chapter 7, the Pharisees and the chief priests. One of the lessons that we can learn from their poor attitude and their prejudice is what the effect on us is when we prejudge people, when we're the ones doing the prejudicing. That might not be correct English, but you know what I mean. The Pharisees, these religious leaders of the day, think they know what Jesus is like and who he is because of their prejudiced views about where he comes from and what they think people from Galilee are like. In fact, not only are they wrong about people from Galilee, they're wrong about Jesus. And through their prejudice, they end up excluding themselves from the life-changing encounter with God that Jesus offers. There's always more to know about Jesus, and this is one of the wonderful things about him. He is full of surprises. So part of the lesson there is that when we allow ourselves or others to persist in prejudice and discrimination, as well as being wrong for the people that are being prejudiced against or discriminated against, it's also bad for the people doing the discrimination. In fact, throughout the Bible, we see that God delights to surprise us. He delights to use people who are not the usual suspects. So we need to be on our toes and ready for something new from him. God is not prejudiced, and he does not discriminate in the ways that we use that word now. When he judges justly on the basis of a full knowledge of all of the situation and the people involved. So when it comes to our actions and our thoughts and our attitudes, we need to be open to God using people who we think are unlikely people in unusual places and in unexpected situations and timings. We need to be open to this God of surprises. And as well as avoiding prejudice and discrimination in all its shapes and ugly disguises, we need to be aware of this God of surprises. He may want to use unlikely people like you and me in unusual places like Chasetown and Brentwood, and unexpected situations and timings like now, even in a pandemic. Our God of surprise is always doing something fresh and creative. So let's go with him and see people for who they are and not what the rumours may be. We may find ourselves being used in some special and surprising ways and seeing God at work amongst people who we are going to delight to get to know better and more fully. A prayer. God of surprises, thank you that you love everything you've made and you are against prejudice and discrimination, that you're always longing to include. Lord, help us to see that you are always at work. Help us to be ready to see you working in unexpected ways and through unlikely people, even people like us. Thank you that you're a God of grace. Help us to keep in step with you and live gracious lives for you. We ask this because of Jesus. Amen. God bless you. Stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you soon in the coming days and weeks. God bless.